Welcome everyone, I'm Audrey and today I'm going to be demoing and explaining gel electrophoresis with the help of Mini1's foodborne outbreak investigation lab. Gel electrophoresis is a technique used by scientists often to identify the source of a DNA sample. So in the forensic science world, this often means taking DNA from a crime scene and comparing it to the known DNA sequence of a suspect using gel electrophoresis. If the sequences match up, then you know that suspect was at the scene of the crime. Now, in the case of our lab today, our suspect has to do with 5 layers of bean dip, which could contain a Shigella sinai bacterium responsible for a foodborne outbreak that occurred after people ate this bean dip and then got sick. So let's first dive into how gel electrophoresis actually works. This is a basic diagram of a gel electrophoresis machine and its main components. In the center here we have the gel with the wells that the DNA samples go into, and at either end we have oppositely charged electrodes, with the negative electrode being closest to the wells and our positive electrode being farthest away. DNA is a negatively charged molecule, so when the samples are placed in these wells and the machine is turned on, creating an electric field between the electrodes, the DNA will want to travel away from the negative electrode through the gel and towards the positive electrode. Now, to understand why this is effective, we need to backtrack a little bit to a precursor to gel electrophoresis called PCR, or polymerase chain reaction. Now, what you need to know for today, I won't go into details because I'll be covering PCR in a future video, is that PCR has the ability to churn out tons of copies of a DNA sample, and also only specifically copy certain genes. Now, these specific genes being copied have different fragment lengths. So, when our DNA travels through this gel, the different fragment lengths will travel at different speeds. Longer ones will have a lot more resistance and won't travel very far, so they'll end up at the end of our experiment pretty close to these wells still. But the shorter fragments will travel a lot farther because they have a lot less resistance, and they'll end up farther down on the gel towards this positive electrode. Now, this creates a DNA picture that looks something like this, with the fragments sorted by base pair size. And because we run all of our samples next to each other, we can compare these DNA pictures, and if they match up, we know that the DNA sample came from the same source. So let's talk about how we need to set up our gel electrophoresis lab to determine the source of our foodborne outbreak of Shigella sinai. First off, in the first lane, we have our Mini1 DNA marker, or M1M. Our Mini1 DNA marker simply provides us with known fragment lengths, in this case 2,000, 1,000, 500, 300, and 100 base pairs, that we can compare to our other samples to figure out how long those fragment lengths are. This provides us with some quantitative data to back up our conclusions at the end of our experiment. Next, let's talk about lanes 5 through 9. We'll be placing DNA samples from all the different layers of bean dip in these channels. So we'll have DNA samples from cheese in lane 5, sour cream in lane 6, in 7, we'll have the bean layer, 8, salsa, and 9, guac. Now, just like in our crime scene, we need something to compare these sequences to see if Shigella sinai really was found in these layers. And that will come with our Shigella reference sequence, which we'll put in lane 4 right below them for easy comparison. Now, our Shigella reference sequence, comes with the genes that are identified to the Shigella sinai species. They're unique to that species, and so if we see them, we can tell that for certain that species was present in our bean dip layers. So we know that these genes have fragment lengths of 175 and 1,000 base pairs, looking something like this. Now, you'll see that even though we have everything in place ready for comparison, part of this gel electrophoresis lab, we also have 2 lanes blank, and that's because we need to include our controls. First up is our positive control. That will go in lane 3. Now, our positive control is comprised of a genetically engineered Shigella sinai sequence that was introduced during PCR. This is critical to ensuring that PCR is actually turning out products like it's supposed to. So all of our samples in all of those lanes should contain lines matching up with our positive control. If it doesn't, we know that the PCR was not turning out anything at all. So our positive control has known fragment lengths of 175 and 1800 base pairs. Lastly, we have our negative control in lane 2. We should simply see nothing in this lane because this sample contains the products of PCR that occurred without any DNA templates, meaning PCR shouldn't have turned out any DNA products at all. If we see anything in this lane, that means that our reagents were contaminated, our data won't be accurate, and we'll have to start over. So to recap, if any of our lanes, any of our bean dip samples come up something like this, and our negative control lane was blank so that we know that our data is accurate, then that means that the DNA found not only matches our positive control, which is good because again our data will be accurate, but it also matches the Shigella reference standard, meaning that the naturally occurring Shigella sonnei responsible for the outbreak was indeed found in that layer, and that layer was responsible for the outbreak. So let's get into demoing this lab. First, we need to cast our gel using the Mini One casting system, which you see here. We need to microwave this gel cup half open for about 20 seconds so that it will boil and turn into a liquid we can pour. After microwaving, first insert your 9-well comb. Then, after doing that, pour the liquid gel into the tray. Let it set for about 10 minutes to solidify. While the gel is setting, let's prep our TBE buffer solution. We'll need 19 parts deionized water to 1 part TBE buffer concentrate. After mixing them, this will be the solution that you will pour over your gel in the gel electrophoresis machine. Let's set up our machine. First, insert the gel tank. Next, insert the black viewing platform in the center. Now we need to remove our gel tray with our gel on it from the casting system. So first, remove the comb. Note that as the gel solidified, 9 wells were created. When you remove the tray from the casting system, be sure to wipe off any excess gel from the bottom of the tray. That way, when you insert the tray into the machine, nothing will be separating it from the black viewing platform. Next, turn on the low-intensity blue light and begin pouring TBE buffer solution on one side of the gel. Wait for the air to be pushed out from underneath the gel before continuing to pour the rest of the 135 milliliters of buffer solution into the other side. The gel should become covered by the buffer solution. Next, we need to make sure everything was set up properly. So to do this, put on your photo hood and press the power button. If you see a solid green light, everything was set up properly and you are ready to start loading DNA samples. Let's load our DNA samples. In class, you may use a microcentrifuge tube, which looks like this, but since I'm the only one performing this lab today, I'm going to be micropipetting right out of the original tube. These tubes have already been centrifuged. First, let's make sure our micropipette has the correct setting of 10 microliters. It should read 100 on this type of micropipette, and the last 0 should be red. Then put on the tip for your micropipette and insert the tip into the liquid after pressing down with your thumb. Then release your thumb to take up liquid. Next, insert your tip into the well and push down with your thumb to release the DNA sample into the well. Do not release your thumb until you get all the way back out of the buffer solution. As you can see here, I didn't get it all in the well the first time, so I had to go back and add more later. That's okay to do, even if you add a little extra, because this would only make the band brighter and not change its placement. Now let's load the rest of the samples. After we're done, we'll put on the photo hood and click the power button again to get it started. We can then film through the photo hood to watch the DNA bands move. Here is a 20-minute time lapse of the DNA bands migrating across the gel. Here is a photo through the photo hood with the high intensity light on of the final results of our gel electrophoresis experiment. As you can see, none of our DNA samples from the different bean dip layers, with the exception of our cheese layer, match both the Shigella reference standard and our positive control. Because the DNA sample from our cheese layer matches both, and our negative control lane is blank like it's supposed to be, and we can therefore assume our results are accurate, we can assume that Shigella sonnei was indeed found in the cheese layer of the bean dip, and that this layer was responsible for the outbreak. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't eat any sketchy bean dip while you're away, and we'll see you next time.